You're exhausted. You're empty. You look in the mirror and don't recognize who's staring back at you anymore. You feel like the whole world is against you, that every step you take leads toward the abyss, that every dream you had turned to ashes in your hands. And right now, in this exact moment, you have two choices. Keep believing that lie or discover the truth that will change everything in your life forever. There's a key inside you. A key that Napoleon Hill discovered after studying over 500 millionaires and winners. A key that the giants of this world use while the weak continue whining and complaining. And today, you're going to discover not just where it is, but how to turn it to transform your life into an unstoppable conquest machine. But first, I need to tell you something that might hurt at first, but is absolutely necessary. You are not defeated, never were. What you call defeat are just tests that separate true warriors from eternal complainers. While ordinary people quit at the first sign of resistance, you're being forged in the fire of adversity. And that's no accident. That's preparation. Napoleon Hill discovered something revolutionary after decades studying brilliant minds. He realized there's a fundamental difference between those who win and those who spend their whole lives asking, what if? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not family money. It's a mental key, an internal frequency you can awaken right now, regardless of where you are or what you've been through. The first truth you need to understand is this: your pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to teach you something that only the chosen learn. Every criticism you receive, every door that slams in your face, every sleepless night questioning your worth, all of this is building something inside you that mediocre people will never have. Mental resilience, unshakable determination, the ability to continue when everyone else stops. You know why some people can transform failures into stepping stones while others sink at the first difficulty? Because they discovered they have different mental programming that doesn't accept defeat as final destiny, but as strategic redirection. Napoleon Hill called this definiteness of purpose. But it's more than that. It's an internal revolution that transforms your essence. Now look around you. See how many people waste energy complaining, justifying, explaining why they can't succeed. They live in the kingdom of excuses. You, if you're watching this far, no longer belong to that group. You belong to those who seek solutions, to those who understand that problems aren't walls, they're disguised doors. This is the first difference between those who win and those who live in mediocrity. The internal key Napoleon Hill discovered has a name: conscious auto-suggestion. But don't confuse this with superficial positive thinking. This is applied mental science. It's the ability to reprogram your subconscious mind to work in your favor 24 hours a day. While others sleep, your mind is processing solutions. While others complain, you're identifying opportunities. While others run from pain, you're using it as fuel. Have you noticed how some people seem to have magnetic force? How they attract opportunities, right people, decisive moments? It's not magic. It's not luck. It's mental frequency. They operate on a frequency of abundance and possibility, while most operate on the frequency of scarcity and limitation. The difference is they awaken the key you're about to discover. But here's something we need to discuss with brutal honesty. Maybe you've tried before. Maybe you've read books, watched videos, attended courses, and still feel something's missing. And you know why? Because you were trying to fix symptoms instead of attacking the root. The root is in your internal conversation, in the dialogue happening in your head 24 hours a day. Napoleon Hill discovered that victorious people have a specific pattern of internal conversation. They don't talk to themselves like victims, they talk like strategists. When something goes wrong, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" or "How can I use this to my advantage?" This simple Shift in perspective is the first turn of the internal key. And here's a truth maybe no one has told you. You're closer to your transformation than you imagine. Much closer. What you interpret as signs of failure might actually be signs that you're on the right track. Because winning isn't about never falling. It's about rising stronger with each fall. It's about transforming every obstacle into a stepping stone. Think about it. How many times in your life has something that seemed terrible in the moment revealed itself as a blessing in disguise later? How many doors that closed led you to better paths? How many people who rejected you actually saved you from toxic relationships? This isn't coincidence. It's the universe conspiring in your favor, but only when you operate on the right frequency. The second part of the internal key is what Napoleon Hill called applied faith. Not blind faith, but intelligent faith. Faith based on understanding that you were designed to win. That every cell in your body, every neuron in your brain, was programmed for victory. The problem is, you spent years being conditioned to believe the opposite. Since childhood, you heard, "It's not possible, be realistic. That's not for people like us." And gradually these external voices became your internal voice. But now you've discovered something revolutionary. You can fire that voice. You can choose new programming. You can rewrite the script of your life. Observe the people around you who live complaining. They have one thing in common. They always find evidence to confirm their limiting beliefs. If they believe life is hard, they find difficulties everywhere. If they believe they don't deserve success, they sabotage their own opportunities. This is called confirmation bias. Your mind seeks and finds exactly what you program it to look for. Now imagine if you programmed your mind to look for opportunities instead of obstacles, to find solutions instead of problems, to identify allies instead of enemies. That's the difference between operating on the frequency of abundance versus the frequency of scarcity. And that choice is yours, right now, in this exact moment. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years studying Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and discovered they all had something in common. They saw temporary failures as feedback, not final verdict. Edison didn't fail 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. He discovered 1,000 ways that didn't work. This shift in perspective is what separates geniuses from ordinary people. And here's something profound you need to understand. Your current pain, your fears, your insecurities, they're not your enemies. They're your most severe and effective teachers. Every moment of suffering is sculpting qualities in you that only adversity can develop. Courage isn't born in comfort. It's born in terror and chooses to act anyway. Wisdom doesn't come from success. It comes from mistakes transformed into learning. You know what's the difference between people who quit and people who persist until they win? It's not physical strength. It's not superior intelligence. It's the ability to reframe pain, to transform suffering into fuel, to use every no as a springboard to the next yes. Victorious people don't feel less pain. They developed stronger emotional muscles. Now I want you to understand something fundamental about how your mind works. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined experiences. This means you can literally reprogram your reality through systematic and disciplined visualization. I'm not talking about fantasizing. I'm talking about mentally architecting your victory with precise sensory details. Napoleon Hill discovered that extraordinary people spend significant time visualizing their goals as already achieved. They feel the emotions of victory. They see the details of success. They hear the sounds of conquest. And they do this repeatedly until the subconscious accepts this reality as truth and begins working to manifest it in the physical world. But here's what most people don't understand about visualization. It's not about passive fantasizing. It's about active programming. When you visualize systematically, you're literally creating neural pathways your mind will follow automatically. You're installing a mental GPS that will guide you to the opportunities, people, and circumstances necessary to materialize your vision. And now I'll tell you something that might be the most important part of all this. You don't need to wait to feel ready. You don't need to wait to be certain. You don't need to wait for conditions to be perfect. The internal key doesn't wait. It acts, it decides, it advances even with fear, even with doubt, even without guarantees. You know why most people never awaken this key? Because they're waiting for inspiration. But inspiration is a consequence of action, not a cause. You act first, and inspiration comes after. You decide first, and courage comes after. You advance first, and confidence comes after. This is the correct order of events. Think about the moments when you felt most alive, most powerful, most connected to your true potential. What was happening? You were acting despite fear. You were doing something that mattered despite uncertainty. You were being who you really are despite circumstances. Those moments are free samples of what your life can be when you operate with the internal key awakened. Napoleon Hill identified that victorious people have a different relationship with failure. For them, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the success process. It's valuable information about what to adjust, what to change, what to intensify. Ordinary people see failure and stop. Extraordinary people see failure and calibrate. Big difference, and here's something that might shock you. Maybe you've been conditioned to fear exactly what you should be seeking. Maybe you've learned that standing out is dangerous, that dreaming big is delusion, that wanting more is greed. But what if all that is limiting programming planted by people who gave up on their own dreams? What if your true nature is exactly the opposite? Observe small children. They're not afraid to dream big, not afraid to try new things. Not afraid to fail. They simply do. And they do it with joy, with curiosity, with natural determination. This isn't immaturity. This is innate wisdom that the world hasn't managed to corrupt yet. And that wisdom is still inside you, waiting to be awakened. The third part of the internal key is what Hill called personal mastery. This means taking total responsibility for your life experience. No more blaming circumstances, people, government, economy, past, family. Not because these things don't have impact, but because focusing on them is surrendering your power to external forces you don't control. Powerful people focus exclusively on what they can control. Their choices, their reactions, their decisions, their actions. They understand that even when they can't control what happens, they can always control how they respond to what happens. And in that response lies all their power of transformation. Have you noticed how some people face the same difficulties as others, but achieve completely different results? It's not because they have more resources or more luck. It's because they have more personal responsibility. They see themselves as protagonists of their own story, not victims of circumstances. And protagonists write different endings than victims. Now, I want you to understand something about criticism and rejection you receive. Most of the time, these criticisms have nothing to do with you. They have to do with the fears, insecurities, and limitations of those making them. People who gave up on their own dreams feel threatened by those still dreaming. People who settled in mediocrity are bothered by those seeking excellence. So when someone criticizes you for trying, for dreaming, for persisting, remember, you're not being attacked for what you're doing wrong. You're being attacked for what you're representing. You represent possibility in a life that chose impossibility. You represent courage in a life that chose conformity. You represent growth in a life that chose stagnation. And this brings us to the fourth part of the internal key, the ability to transform external resistance into internal fuel. Every no you receive is actually a not yet. Every door that closes is a redirection to a better door. Every person who doubts you is one more voice you prove wrong when you win. Napoleon Hill discovered that extraordinary people have a special relationship with adversity. They don't just endure it, they seek it, because they understand that mental muscles, like physical muscles, only grow under resistance. Easy life creates weak people. Challenging life creates strong people. And you have a choice about what type of person you want to become. But here's something crucial. You don't need to seek unnecessary suffering. Life already offers enough challenges. What you need is to change your relationship with these inevitable challenges. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" start asking, "How can this make me stronger?" Or "What skill is this forcing me to develop?" This simple shift in perspective transforms you from victim to student, from sufferer to strategist, from complainer to solution finder. And when you operate in this frequency, your energy changes, your posture changes, your choices change, and consequently, your results change. Now I'll tell you something about timing that might completely change how you see your current situation. Maybe you feel you're late, that you should have started earlier, that you wasted too much time. But what if I told you that you're exactly where you need to be, at the exact moment you need to be there? What if every experience you had, good or bad, was preparation for what's coming? Think about it. Ray Kroc was 52 when he founded McDonald's. Colonel Sanders was 65 when he created KFC. Laura Ingalls Wilder published her first book at 64. Grandma Moses started painting at 78. Perfect timing isn't about age. It's about preparation, meeting opportunity, and maybe all the pain you went through, all the falls you took, all the mistakes you made, were preparing you for this exact moment. They were developing in you the resistance, wisdom, and determination necessary to handle the success that's coming. Because success without preparation is temporary disaster. The fifth part of the internal key is what Hill called controlled enthusiasm. Not childish enthusiasm that disappears at the first difficulty, but mature enthusiasm that feeds on purpose and strengthens with obstacles. It's the difference between being excited and being committed. Excitement is emotional and temporary. Commitment is mental and permanent. You know what's the most striking characteristic of people who manage to maintain consistency for years until reaching their goals? They develop the ability to act independently of how they feel. They act when motivated and act when they're not. They act when they have energy and act when they're tired. They act when they believe and act when they doubt. This isn't about being a machine without emotions. It's about understanding that emotions are information, not commands. You can feel fear and act with courage, can feel sadness and act with hope, can feel doubt and act with faith. Your actions don't need to be hostage to your feelings. In fact, often it's your actions that change your feelings, not the other way around. And here's a powerful truth. You don't need to be perfect to start. Don't need to have all the answers to take the first step. Don't need to see the whole staircase to climb the first step. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Victorious people don't wait for ideal conditions. They create ideal conditions through consistent action. Think about how many people you know who are always preparing to start, always waiting for the right moment, always gathering more information. These people have one thing in common. They never start. Because perfect moment is an illusion. Perfect preparation is disguised procrastination. Perfect information is analysis paralysis. The internal key works differently. It says, start where you are with what you have, doing what you can, and then improve along the way. Adjust while walking, evolve in practice. Because real experience teaches more in a week than abstract theory teaches in a year. Napoleon Hill discovered something fascinating studying Henry Ford. Ford wasn't the smartest, most educated or most experienced man in the automotive business. But he had something his competitors didn't: willingness to start before being ready and persist until being right. This willingness compensated for all other disadvantages. And now I'll tell you about one of the most important parts of the internal key: the ability to maintain privacy about your plans until they're solid enough to resist external opinions. There's power in strategic silence. There's strength in discreet construction. There's wisdom in doing first and explaining later. Have you noticed how some people talk more about their plans than actually do for them? How they spend more energy explaining their dreams than building their dreams? This happens because they seek external validation instead of internal validation. They need others' approval to feel their goals are valid. People with the awakened internal key don't need an audience for their efforts. They work in silence, build in discretion, advance without fanfare. Not because they're shy or insecure, but because they understand that energy spent explaining is energy not being invested in execution. And execution is what really matters. Besides, when you share your plans prematurely, you open space for doubts and limitations of others to contaminate your vision. Well-intentioned but limited people will give you 1,000 reasons why it won't work. And if you don't have the internal key well awakened, these voices can interfere with your frequency. The sixth part of the key is what Hill called burning definiteness of purpose. Not just vague goals or superficial desires, but a purpose so clear and intense that it magnetizes resources, opportunities, and right people to your life. It's the difference between wanting something and being possessed by something greater than yourself. When your purpose is clear and burning, you stop needing external motivation. The purpose itself becomes your inexhaustible source of energy. You naturally wake up early because you have something important to do. You naturally overcome obstacles because they become irrelevant compared to the size of your mission. You naturally persist because quitting would be betrayal of your essence. But beware of a common trap, confusing purpose with result. Result is what you want to achieve. Purpose is why you want to achieve it. Result is external and temporary. Purpose is internal and eternal. People focused only on results quit when results take time. People connected with purpose persist because the process itself is already rewarding. Now I want you to think about something profound. What if all the resistance you encounter, all the difficulty you face, all the slowness you feel, is actually the universe testing whether you really want what you say you want? What if it's a way to separate passing desires from genuine commitments? What if it's a natural filter that eliminates people who aren't willing to pay the price? This changes everything, doesn't it? Because it means your current persistence isn't stubbornness. It's proof you were chosen for something greater. Your ability to continue when others stop isn't masochism. It's evidence you have winner's fiber. Your refusal to quit isn't obstinacy. It's a sign the internal key is awakening. And here's something that might sound controversial, but is absolutely true. You weren't designed to be understood by everyone. You weren't created to be accepted by the majority. You weren't made to fit average standards. You were designed to stand out, to disturb the status quo, to show it's possible to live differently. That's why the criticism. That's why the resistance. That's why the feeling of not belonging. It's not because you're wrong. It's because you're right in a way most can't understand yet. You're operating on a different frequency, and this naturally creates dissonance with those operating on the frequency of mediocrity. The seventh part of the internal key is applied faith, we mentioned, but now I'll go deeper. Applied faith isn't believing without evidence. It's acting as if the result were inevitable while working to make it inevitable. It's the perfect combination of unshakable confidence and intelligent effort. It's believing and doing simultaneously. Napoleon Hill noticed that extraordinary people have an internal certainty about their goals that doesn't depend on external evidence. They know they'll succeed before even knowing how they'll succeed. And this certainty isn't arrogance. It's deep connection with their real potential. It's recognition they were equipped with everything needed to win. This applied faith works like a mental magnet that attracts necessary conditions for your victory. When you operate with absolute certainty about your destiny, other people feel this energy and want to be part of your journey. Opportunities appear because you're vibrating on the frequency of possibility. Resources emerge because you're operating in the mentality of abundance. But applied faith also means being willing to bet on yourself when no one else will. Means investing time, energy, and resources in your vision, even when there are no guarantees. Means treating your goals not as distant possibilities, but as ongoing projects that deserve your total dedication. And here we reach a crucial point. The difference between people who dream and people who achieve lies in the willingness to pay prices. Dreamers want results without sacrifices. Achievers understand everything in life has a price and are willing to pay in advance. Dreamers expect life to be easy. Achievers make life look easy because they did the hard work. The price of success is always paid in advance. In discipline when you don't want to be disciplined. In effort when you want to rest. In focus when you want to get distracted. In persistence when you want to quit. This advance payment is what separates the few who win from the many who keep dreaming. The eighth part of the internal key is applied self-control. This means having mastery over your impulses, emotions, and reactions. Means consciously choosing your responses instead of being hostage to your instincts. Means being the director of your experience instead of just an actor reacting to others' script. People with developed self-control aren't cold or insensitive. They simply learn to use their emotions as information instead of letting emotions use them as puppets. They feel everything intensely, but carefully choose how to express and channel these emotions. They transform destructive impulses into constructive energy. And here's a secret few know. Self-control isn't repression. It's intelligent redirection. Instead of repressing anger, you channel it into determination. Instead of repressing fear, you transform it into productive caution. Instead of repressing sadness, you use it as fuel for change. It's emotional alchemy. Now I'll tell you something about strategic patience that can revolutionize your approach to goals. There's a difference between passive patience and active patience. Passive patience is waiting for things to happen. Active patience is working consistently while allowing time to do its part. It's planting every day knowing harvest has its natural time. People with the awakened internal key understand timing. They know when to push and when to wait, when to accelerate and when to retreat, when to insist and when to pivot. This wisdom doesn't come from books. It comes from real experience, real attempts, real failures transformed into real wisdom. It's intuition developed through action. And this brings us to the ninth part of the key, the ability to learn fast and adjust constantly. Victorious people aren't people who never make mistakes. They're people who mistake fast, learn fast, and adjust fast. They treat each attempt as an experiment, each result as data, each failure as valuable feedback about what to adjust in the next attempt. This experimental mindset removes the emotional weight of failure. When you're experimenting, there is no failure. There are only results that bring you closer or farther from the goal. And both are valuable. Results that bring you closer show what to keep doing. Results that take you farther show what to stop doing. Both accelerate your progress. Napoleon Hill identified that extraordinary people have a special relationship with negative feedback. Instead of being offended or discouraged, they're grateful. Because specific negative feedback is more valuable than generic praise. Praise makes you feel good, but feedback makes you get better. And victorious people choose to get better instead of just feeling good. Now, we reach the 10th and final part of the internal key. The ability to maintain long-term vision while executing short-term actions. It's living in the present with future perspective. It's working today to harvest tomorrow. It's sacrificing momentary pleasures for lasting satisfaction. It's choosing difficult now to have easy later. This differentiated temporal perspective separates people who build empires from people who consume entertainment. People who create legacies from people who only live the moment. People who transform the world from people who just complain about the world. It's the difference between planters and consumers. And here's the final truth you need to understand. You already have everything inside you to win. The internal key doesn't need to be installed. It needs to be awakened. Doesn't need to be learned. It needs to be remembered. Doesn't need to be developed. It needs to be unlocked. You were born equipped for victory. The world just made you forget it. Every moment of pain you went through developed your resistance. Every disappointment you faced expanded your understanding. Every mistake you made refined your wisdom. Every criticism you received strengthened your determination. Nothing was in vain. Everything was preparation for this moment, when you finally awaken the key and take total control of your life. So now, in this exact moment, you have a fundamental choice to make. You can keep living as a victim of circumstances, reacting to events, waiting for someone or something to change your life. Or you can awaken the internal key, take total responsibility for your experience, and start consciously creating the reality you desire.